What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take NFL DFS First Look. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. Joined by none other than the man, the myth, the legend of the Wise Take Nation. One of the original OGs. That's right, the original OGs. That's original G. Patio Joe. You can find him on Twitter at Patio Joe. Ref, Joey, my man. What's happening, bro?
Not much, man. It's already week 2. It's like we got such a quick turnaround, you know. Like we had the 2 games Monday Night Football, and now I'm back talking with you. I was listening to you and Paulie last night on the show, and now we're already talking about week 2, and I feel like I already have way more prepared than week 1, just because we were kind of going in it blind, and now we at least have a little bit of data points that we can look at, even though it's such a small sample size.
Absolutely. Week 1, I had a hard time narrowing things down, and what I ultimately narrowed things down to was just not right. So I too feel like there's only one place to go from here, and that is up, and that is with the help of seeing a lot of football in week 1. I mean, I had a terrible week, and I know you did well. We'll talk about that in a second. I had a terrible week, but I didn't even care. It was just nice to have football back, man. It was just nice to, you know what I'm saying? It was just that good fall feeling. You know, like the NBA season obviously got warped. Baseball was just a weird season in general. It was nice. I mean, no offense, but right on time. Some NFL, some football. You know what I mean? Like Monday Night Football, 2 games. It was just nice. It was really nice. With that said, Patio Joe, Wise Take residential cash game expert. For NFL, you had yourself a pretty good week, I believe.
Yeah, I've been really concentrating on doing only a few lineups this year, playing mostly cash games. Come to the conclusion that you need to either you're either going to be a cash game player or a GPP player, because if you play kind of half and half, you'll probably just break even most of the time. You got to pick one or the other. So this year, I'm just going to concentrate more on just as many small lineups as I possibly can. I'll pick maybe one game or two to stack on my other GPP lineups, but most of the time, I'm just concentrating on that one lineup. And it worked out so far this week. I'm to finish in the top 10 of all the cash games. Basically, it came down to the late news of Miles Sanders being out. And it just allowed us, like, even though Boston Scott kind of busted out, if you know cash game theory, if you know that like 80% of the field's going to go there, it doesn't matter what the player does, because you're going to try and be different somewhere else. So I'll just take that 80-90% guy like Boston Scott was for the price discount. I mean, he got like 6 points or whatever. It was like 1.5x. It didn't really matter. But it allowed me to move up to Lamar Jackson. That allowed me to stay with Davante Adams, and it just made me feel a little bit more comfortable to kind of move things around, and to where my cash lineup was good, and it hit for like 160 points. So yes, Boston Scott was a bust in the GPP sense of the term, because he did not, do, and either did Gibson if you went Gibson route or whatever. But because he was so high owned and okay sometimes to just like take the free square, even if he only gets 4 or 5 points, because everybody else is going to get that. And that's what happened. And, I was different. Like I said, Davante Adams hit. That was my number 1 receiver on the week. And then Josh Jacobs was my core play. I knew just you just follow the bad D-lines, the young D-lines and stuff like that, where you get the advantage. And that's what happened. And it was a pretty nice chunk of change for cash on Sunday.
Absolutely, man. Davante Adams, Smash City. Jacobs, Smash City. And again, it was good to kind of see like a little bit of clarity, right? Like in the Tampa Bay situation we've had with the running backs, we were a little wondering what they were going to do. Antonio Gibson situation, we kind of got to see some things. There were a couple surprises. I think. Well, let me ask you, what do you think was the biggest surprise?
The biggest surprise to me was Austin Eckler getting 1 target the entire game. That was like the biggest surprise of anybody. Like Nick Chubb not doing very well. It was like, to me, it was like everybody's worried. They were getting their ass handed to them. They're playing on Thursday in a short week, and it's the first week of the season. They're not going to keep running him out there. So he wasn't really that big a surprise. It was Eckler to me. Like for him to only get one target, it was kind of concerning and stuff. But hopefully, I mean, he did get 19 carries, so that was okay. That I didn't mind that. But this week though, at least with the Chargers, we'll talk about it a little more. At least they're playing the Chiefs. The game script should be a little bit different, and they'll probably have some garbage time to where Eckler will be needed. And Josh Kelly, who emerged, seems like going to be maybe the goal line back for the Chargers. It's not going to happen unless for some reason Chargers are ahead.
Yeah, man. I also thought that was strange. I mean, he got 19 carries, which was that part I think we expected, right? We expected him to get a lot of overall touches, but the lack of targets was, it's funny because that happened. Meanwhile, Phillip Rivers, your ex-quarterback, was out in Indianapolis, and I think each running back, obviously Marlon Mack went down with an injury, but I think Hines and Taylor both had I think 7 and 9 targets in the past game. So I guess we'll kind of see what happens going forward, Eckler. I'm still optimistic because of the 19 carries, but obviously from a PPR perspective, it's like, is it going to be a balance now? Is he going to turn into a volume guy with carries, but we're going to lose some of those pass play upside, big plays that he used to get? Interesting to find out. And I mean, they were playing Cincinnati, and the game was close, so you would think that they're not going to have too many other opportunities better than that one. But it could have just been week 1 with a new quarterback, right? Maybe.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was like a very boring, sloppy game too. It just didn't seem like they could get in any rhythm or anything like that. And as for Rivers, it almost seems to me like they played the exact same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly the same. It was just like in it, and then they lose at the end, and you're like, "What the hell? How did they lose that game?"
Absolutely. It was definitely a Phillip Rivers game. 100% a Phillip Rivers game. Chargers, just a different jersey. With that said, we'll move on to week 2. I'm sure there's a lot we could vent about for week 1. James Conner, Michael Thomas, plenty to vent about for me in season longs. But I'm ready to move on to greener pastures in week 2 and beyond. Joe, I think we've got a pretty good slate of games. We got some high totals on DraftKings. I know you'll cover FanDuel for us on DraftKings. We've got a ton of really soft pricing, a ton of things that I'd like to talk to you about and get your opinions on. But we're going to start things off with the first game that I see, which is one of the premier games, the Atlanta Falcons and the Dallas Cowboys. We've got a 52 total, already up 1 point from 51. Dallas opened up -6 or down to -5. Falcons coming off of a beatdown at the hands of Russell Wilson and company. Meanwhile, the Cowboys coming off a loss as well, going up against the Rams after they were favored to win the game, lost outright. Patio Joe, first look. What do you see here?
Well, this is a Joe Buck, Troy Aikman special. You can just kind of see Joe Buck right now, naked in his room, just edging himself to Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott videos, just jerking himself off. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to be licking their assholes all freaking game for 4 hours. That's what I'm going to be doing because of the Cowboys' first game. Oh, it's a Joe Buck special. Actually, though, I really like this game. I mean, it's got just a whole bunch of goodness. Dak Prescott is going to be throwing the whole game. The Dallas defense isn't that good. So even if they get ahead, it's going to be Matt Ryan throwing again. It's probably, honestly, I feel like right now it's the premier game of the week when it comes to just scoring up and down. Both teams need a win. You can go with it many ways. You can go basically Dak, obviously he's the number 1 quarterback, one of the top quarterbacks on the slate. Not the top, but he's at 8,300. He's the 3rd quarterback. And then you got Matt Ryan just a little bit below him. I don't mind that. Running backs, you could go Zeke. It's not gonna beat. I just don't know. I think they might be throwing more. But he's been catching the ball. So his floor and ceiling is they're really close, I think. You know what I mean? But it's a really safe floor. And then the receivers, boy, I mean, Cooper could get back on the snide. CeeDee Lamb, that's going to be a very bougie pick. Gallup is going to be there. And then on the other side, Ridley and Julio just doing the dirty. And then Russell Gage. This whole game is probably the game of the week. So obviously Ridley is my boy. I have him a lot in seasonal. And you just anywhere you can go in this game. I mean, even the tight ends, Hayden Hurst, you know he's going to play him because he busted out last week, so that's not bad either. But yeah, get yourself a piece of this game no matter what.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. Right out of the gate, the first thing you see when you pull up DraftKings, like you start looking at the quarterbacks, you see the typical ones, Jackson, Mahomes, and then you see Prescott just kind of stands out. He's 6'8", so it's not like he's cheap or anything. But we saw what Russell Wilson just did to him. Dak Prescott is home. We know that not new offensive coordinator, but their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, likes to throw, right? We know McCarthy, supposed to be a quarterback dude of some sort. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. I think that on the Cowboys side, there's a lot to like, literally everyone to like. But I think like Amari Cooper just seems like one of the standout plays of the slate on DraftKings. 6,300, I think he is. Is he 63? I'm gonna check that. No, wait. Yeah, 6,300 on DraftKings against Atlanta. I know that Carson caught 2 of the touchdown passes, so obviously you look at a guy like Zeke who still got 20 plus carries alone. Only got like 3 targets, but 20 plus carries alone. We know, like you said, the standard deviation of Zeke doesn't seem too different. You wonder about that ceiling. Does he still have the capabilities of putting those 44s and whatnots that he was doing when Zeke was really in here eating all the cereal, like an animal? But with the new offensive coordinator, they want to throw. They want to throw, especially in competitive games. So I like everything here. I think as the week goes on, it's going to be trying to narrow it down. Because like you said, you got Gallup and CeeDee Lamb didn't get a ton of action in that particular game. But I think that them being at home now, another week under their belt, is Amari Cooper going to get another 14 targets? Maybe. But maybe there's more to go around in general. So off top, just pricing everything, this game looks really exciting from the Cowboys side. The Falcons side, obviously Ridley is just a stud, man, and he's really just kind of taking control of that offense and just hogging all sorts of attention, and you just have no choice. It's like the younger guy in baseball batting third with the old veteran that you're terrified of batting fourth. He's just constantly protected. Teams always got to prepare for Julio, and therefore Ridley's always going to draw the softer matchup. Could this be the time where they finally switch? At some point, you would think they're going to say, no, you know what, we got to take care of this Ridley guy. When that happens, Julio's going to erupt. So either way, they're really set at receiver right now with those 2 guys. And obviously, you don't want to rule out Todd Gurley completely. We did see some promising signs, and we saw Malcolm Brown had a pretty big game against these Cowboys. So a lot to like. I agree, man. Massive total right out the gate, coming out strong. A lot to like in this game. With that said, let's move on to the next one. We've got the Denver Broncos and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've got a 41.5 total. Not so enticing. The Steelers opened up -6.5. They're to -7.5. We saw the Broncos came close to beating the Titans. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh, a little bit of a statement game for their defense, I think, against Daniel Jones and the Giants. However, James Conner did go down in the second quarter or whatever it was and did not return for the rest of the game. He's questionable. They said he avoided a high ankle sprain, but we still don't know what his status is for sure. Obviously, if he's ruled out, Joe, Benny Snell probably going to be one of the chalkiest plays on the slate. Talk to me about Broncos Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, both teams probably have the discount too of playing Monday night. They don't know how they did. So you got players that might have been priced up that if they would have played on Sunday, regular main slate, but because they played on Monday night, they're priced a little bit lower than they normally would be. Juju's only 7,100, stuff like that. Ben's only 7,500. But this game in general, I feel like the what stands out is the Pittsburgh D the most, just because Denver's going to be coming off of a short week. Cortland Sutton might not be playing again. It looks like Philip Lindsay has turf toe. So they'll just be playing Melvin Gordon. Pittsburgh absolutely crushed Barkley, and now they're at home. To me, it just seems like a defensive game where they're just going to just steamroll the Broncos. Broncos couldn't put up much against the Titans. And so I don't mind that. I mean, obviously, I think you can go with, like you said, Snell is chalk city if he's a starter. But if not, if Connor's active, just stay away from either situation because it's going to be split no matter what. Or Connor's just going to be there to muddle things up. But receiving wise, it's Juju. And then if you wanted to throw darts at, Claypool and Washington, that's not bad either. Tight end, just stay away from. Denver, stay away from completely. You could, I guess, throw some darts at Jerry Jeudy, but I just don't think, it's just not worth it. There's so many other places to go.
I'm very one-sided on this game. I think that you can make a case for a Steelers onslaught, and think in tournaments, of course. Obviously, Snell is going to be really popular if Connor is ruled out. If Connor is ruled in, I don't expect a ton of ownership to be on any of the Steelers just because of how good options we have everywhere else. We just got done talking about one of the games of the day, and it's a 1 p.m. Eastern start. But if regardless of whether Connor plays or not, we know Ben Roethlisberger is notorious for his home and road splits, right? Everybody knows to take Ben Roethlisberger at home. He's playing a Denver defense that I think played better than I expected, considering how many people they're missing. But there were a ton of big plays. There was a ton of opportunity, and I think a more dynamic offense. When I say dynamic, Derrick Henry is a guy that we know they don't love to throw to. I think we'll see them throw more to him in general, but they'd rather just hand him the rock and let him do what he does. The Steelers are more progressive in that way, right? Like they're gonna feed the running back any way they have to, and in a lot of times it's gonna include Big Ben. So I think that you mentioned Juju, who I expect to have an awesome year, and I completely agree with you on the pricing. That's why we have Snell at 4,500, Juju Smith-Schuster 6,500, and just to show Amari Cooper again, just to go back to that, 6,300 for Amari Cooper. Juju Smith-Schuster, who I think is also like fairly underpriced for the role, is 6,500. Yet Amari Cooper, who got 14 targets, is 6,300. Anyway, I do like Juju. I like whichever running back we get. If it's Connor, from a tournament perspective, I am interested. I think people may be hesitant to pull the trigger, and based off his price at 68, he's the most expensive Steeler, and it's just, not, I guess, enticing. I would expect him to have low ownership, but if Snell, obviously, that's like a lock. If he's there, I'm just going to do it. One thing about the Steelers, like there's always the potential of their splits, but Tomlin does like to have a guy get into a groove. That's one thing that I think he's always believed in his running backs, is whoever I'm going with, I need to give that person time to kind of groove, get into that groove and play behind the offensive line. You see Le'Veon Bell, how bad he's struggling. Now, granted, he's in an offense that doesn't fit his style, but you simply see ever since he left the team, it's the next man up. No matter who their running back is, that running back performs. Even back when Le'Veon Bell was with the Steelers and he would get hurt, we would see D'Angelo Williams, in older age, just completely smash every time. He'd step in like nothing. So I'm big on the Steelers offense at home. I agree with you on the defense. This is a situation where the bring back is tough. I would rather just have an extra Steeler because I can see the Steelers just completely trouncing Denver on the road. So low total, I'm thinking people maybe stay away outside of a Snell if that opens up, which we don't know for sure. And I do like Steelers offense, but like you said, there's a lot to like. Let's get to the next one. We've got the Minnesota Vikings and the Indianapolis Colts, 48.5 total, which is up from 46 at open after we saw Week 1 go down. Colts are currently 3-point favorites at home against the Vikings. Joe, talk to me here about your boy Phillip Rivers.
Well, I mean, he looked old last week, and it's funny. People are still talking about him this week, though, because of how bad the Vikings defense was last week. But honestly, when I was looking at the slate last night, just looking at the pricing and stuff after what's going down, and to me, one of the highest owned players on the slate is going to be Jonathan Taylor on FanDuel. He's 5,800. I feel like he's going to just be a lock for salary relief, especially if like Snell, especially if Connor plays and we don't have like that crazy value open up. I mean, FanDuel is 5,800. He's going to get the majority of the carries in a good script. I think on DraftKings, Nyheim Hines has got to be looked at too. I mean, he's going to be the Austin Eckler. Guys, if you're also doing waiver wire tonight, he's probably the number one waiver wire pickup on the wire if you around there, just because everybody's thinking that Rivers is just a dump down master. He's not going to be able to throw deep downfield anymore. So just basically, he's just going to be dumping it off. I mean, even Taylor got 6 catches last week after Mac came out. So he's going to be being involved in the passing game. And at 5,800, I feel like just lock him in. On the other receivers, I think you can also Paris Campbell is interesting at 5,300. He looked like he had such a great rapport with Rivers. He doesn't throw those long routes and stuff like that. He had, he was he had 9 targets, 6 to 71. If he gets in the end zone, he's great. T.Y. Hilton, if he's going to be on Holden Hill, the guy that Devontae Adams absolutely bent over and raped, then T.Y. Hilton's in play too. On the other side, Adam Thielen is probably the one main play. He's like the only show in town. Even if you get garbage time, he got garbage time and got like 30 points last week. So Thielen is always in play because of just there's not been many other playmakers anymore. Dalvin Cook I could get with in a GPP setting just because there's so many other people there. But we all know that he can always break one. He scored 2 touchdowns last week. And the Colts got ran on a little bit more than I thought they would have last week. Their defense was probably the second biggest surprise of the week, I think. I thought the Colts defense was going to play a little bit better than they did. But this game is definitely, I think it has some decent cash plays with Taylor, Hines, and even Rivers.
This game just looks phenomenal from every perspective. So Phillip Rivers is not a guy that people are ever terribly excited to roster, but he's 5'9" on DraftKings. He threw the ball a ton. They lost Marlon Mack. So the running back situation is a little bit more clear. They had 3 guys that were in potential of getting used before. Now it's just down to 2, right? And both of them get pass game work. So I guess that's the confusing part, is which one you want to go with, because they're in a good spot. The Colts do have a good offensive line for running. Marlon Mack looked pretty good before he tore his Achilles, which is fucking terrible. But in general, I did like what I saw from this offense. Now, they weren't as efficient as you would expect, but they're home this time. T.Y. Hilton, another one, known for his home splits, always playing better when he's on the turf. So I'm excited about this game. From a pricing perspective, especially, like the Colts side, it sets you up really beautifully to have some awesome teams and allows you to be able to go ahead and get some of the studs on the slate. But I like Rivers. You mentioned Paris Campbell. That kid looks good. They were talking about him in camp. I know Paulie was talking about Paris. He was talking about Paris Campbell to me earlier before the baseball show. I know he's excited about him. Him and T.Y. Hilton both got 9 targets apiece. So that, I mean, like it's like, some guys miss out, right? Jack Doyle is there. He only got like 4 targets. Wasn't really worked in. So there's a lot of guys you still have to narrow it down to, and from look at a matchup perspective and try to figure it out. But off the gate, the Colts just like, they look good. They're another one of those teams where, like, just because of their price, you can onslaught them. Well, I don't want to say I'm not their defense, but you can play more players than you would normally play. You could do a triple stack with these kind of, you know what I'm saying? Because they're so cheap. They don't need a ton to get you the return on their price. So just in general, I'm really high on the Colts this week. T.Y. Hilton's only 5,700. I know he didn't have a great game, only caught 4 passes, but he did have 9 targets. It wasn't like Phillip Rivers didn't try to give him the ball. And like you said, we just saw Aaron Rodgers. Now, it's Aaron Rodgers. I know that. And Devontae Adams is fucking good. But they just destroyed him out the gate. So I think that there's a lot to like on the Colts side. And the beauty, if you are looking to bring shit back, which I think you should, absolutely. If the Jaguars are able to move the ball so well on these guys, I think that Dalvin Cook and company should be able to as well. And like you said, the offense is concentrated. Now, these guys are a little more expensive, but the Colts were cheap enough. They're going to allow you to comfortably fit in these other guys, Dalvin Cook and Thielen, who are the only 2 guys, like you said, or you're even wanting. So I think this game's competitive. I think that I agree with you. The Colts defense was surprisingly not that great. And I think that the Viking situation was like right in front of us, right? We had all talked about how their defense is different this year. It's not going to be the same. Like, for me personally, getting my head around Rodgers was an issue. Getting my head around, like, but the system just doesn't seem to suit him. Well, it does when the opposing defense is butt cheeks. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I love this game. I like both sides of it. And I think the Colts side, you're getting a ton of value. You could play a bunch of them dudes. And on the Viking side, it's just 2 dudes. Nice and easy. Just 2 dudes. Dalvin Cook, Thielen, one, the other, or both. I like it, Joe. Moving on. Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans. We've got a 42 total. Titans currently 9-point favorites at home on some short rest. Jacksonville with the upset. You think they got in there again, Joe?
Man, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. They're on the road. They're playing a division foe now on a short week. And I mean, when I was looking at through this, my first look, I was like, I stopped at Derrick Henry at 8,300 on FanDuel. I was like, there's nobody else there. He even caught 3 receptions for 15 yards yesterday. Had 3 targets. I mean, that's something. And he had 31 rushing attempts. So I mean, it's going to be that same way on Sunday again. They're going to rely on him. There's nobody else. Believe it or not, though, I was watching that game. I thought that I saw a little bit more out of Corey Davis and AJ Brown. Their passing attack might be a little bit better, and if that only is going to help Henry more if they can pass better. So, but to me, I feel like it's Derrick Henry just out the gate. He just seems like a very easy, safe play, safe floor. He's going to get the ball. I think you could go with the Titans D if you wanted to throw, if you're doing 100 lineups. Jonnu Smith isn't bad also. He seemed to be like, they seemed like they wanted to get him the ball with, screens, and they wanted to basically purposely get him. And he had 7 targets, 4 for 36. He got in the end zone at 4,900 on FanDuel. That's pretty damn good. If you told me to get 7 targets, I don't mind that. So, receiver wise, obviously AJ Brown is the shiny tool that everybody loves. On FanDuel, he's 6,600, so he's kind of like in that DK Metcalf last week range where all it takes is one and he can make value. So I don't mind him. If you want to go back to Corey Davis and stuff like that, you can. I'm not interested in Tannehill. On Jacksonville side, I'd like to see it again. If you wanted to tell me you wanted garbage time with Chark and stuff like that, I can deal with it too, but I'm pretty much off of them and just on Henry.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on Derrick Henry. I think he just looks like a phenomenal situation for him. The game script you would think would favor him as well, and we know there's a strong correlation between home favorites, running back, especially if a touchdown or more. So this bodes really well for Derrick Henry. I guess the only concern is if this game does if it happens to get out of hand, at what point do they take it easy with Henry? But that's being a little optimistic for the Titans, I think. 31 touches against Denver in a close game. 31 touches, man. You just don't. I feel like we don't see that so much anymore. This is just. It's. I mean, I guess it's just been a couple of years, but nowadays with so many running backs doing, the split duties, you don't. I don't know. I feel like we don't get a ton of that bell cow type situation, and people are always changing things to go to the pass. So, Derrick Henry, 7,900. On DraftKings just seems underpriced in a phenomenal situation. I think he's got a phenomenal floor. I think he's got a really healthy looking ceiling in a situation like this. And if Jacksonville can keep it competitive, more power to him. Another thing I will say is I did like what we saw from James Robinson. He did get 16 carries in that game. Only 1 target. We knew that was the case. Chris Thompson only got 2, so they just didn't really throw to the running back. But I was impressed that he had 16 carries, 62 rushing yards, had a total of 90-something. I think the pass play was like 28 yards or something like that. So he's 4,400 for those who do MME, just somebody to kind of keep in mind going forward when he's cheap. I don't know if this is necessarily the right spot. We did see Melvin Gordon had a decent game, but that's all it really was decent. And Tennessee's home this time, so I do expect him to play a little bit better defensively. But in general, I'm fine with AJ Brown. I'm fine with even looking at some value with Corey Davis. I was impressed with how many targets he. I think how long have people been waiting for that shit? How many people have been playing Corey Davis every fucking week for years, waiting for that guy to have that game, and it wasn't even on a main slate. That's just a shame. It's just a shame, man. Shout out to those Corey Davis truthers, man. Hopefully they had him on a 2-game slate. But I'm with you. I think they're fine, but the real stud here is Derrick Henry. Holla at your boy. Next up, we got the New York Giants, Paulie D's New York Giants, visiting the Chicago Bears. We have a 42 total. Bears opened up -6 to down to -5.5. I'm kind of surprised that they're favored by that much. That seems kind of steep. I mean, listen, I understand that the Giants' defense is atrocious. They just got beat up by the Steelers, but that line seems, I don't know. I was shocked to see Mitch Trubisky favored by that much against anyone. What are your thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I watched a lot of that Giants game last night, and Daniel Jones, man, that drive was like 20 plays, and then
That was
man, that
dumb.
one
Yeah,
play, man,
yeah. He looked so good.
it's like you had like a great date, man, and you're driving the whole way, and then literally as you're about to like stick it in, like you can't even get it out of your pants
Yeah,
and you nut
yeah.
it.
Oh yeah.
Literally, you're just there. You're with the perfect 10. You're with the girl that you want. You're about to go ahead, and all of a sudden you nut premature
Oh yeah.
ejaculation. It's the
Oh
worst
yeah.
thing. And that was
Oh
Daniel
yeah.
Jones. Honestly, it really was. And I feel bad for the guy, but it was. I'm Mitch Trubisky had a lot of premature ejaculations his first few years too. But this week, I actually think the narrative of the squeaky wheel kind of getting the grease and Allen Robinson just like getting fed. I could see that happening because the Giants secondary is terrible. And then value wise, same thing. Anthony Miller, 5,700, another good value option. Probably more of a DK play to me, but I don't mind that. On the other side, Darius Slayton seemed to me like he is the number one receiver that Jones likes, especially going deep. He had 9 targets, 6 receptions, 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. We also have like the discount again, 5,300, very cheap on FanDuel, so I don't mind that. I just don't know how many points it's going to pick up to like maybe stack the game. Barkley, 9K is too much for what we saw. And on the road, he did not get the discount I feel like he should be getting right now. And I'll stay away from the Chicago running game, probably stay away from the quarterbacks. Really, I think the receivers are only thing that interests me in this game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not really into either quarterback, just because I like so. It's not that I don't like these quarterbacks; it's that I like so many others. But we'll see where we end up by the end of the week. It's still pretty early, but I agree with you on the receivers right out the gate. Right, Slayton looks like Jones's guy. We knew that last year, and they kind of put a stamp on it. Maybe a big part of that is going to be, I think, dependent on Golden Tate's status. I still think Slayton's the one. It's just a matter of like there's going to be some games where Tate just has a better matchup and they exploit that, and it just fucking happens. But as long as Tate is out, I don't know. Shepard just doesn't strike me as a guy with that kind of regular type upside. Like, yeah, once in a while he'll pop, but in comparison to Slayton, Danny Jones, and this is nothing against Shepard, it's just a matter of Danny Jones seems to have a thing with Slayton. He likes to throw the ball down the field. Slayton's a guy that's going to be down the field. That's how it works. I was also Evan Ingram obviously had a bad game, but he did get 7 targets, I think. Only caught 2 of them. Saquon Barkley, only 12 carries. They were losing a lot of that game, but also I think 9 targets in the pass game. So Barkley, obviously, he's not in as good a position as the other. We talked about Zeke. We talked about Derrick Henry. We talked about a bunch of running backs that are in a really good, phenomenal spot. This is not the greatest spot for Barkley. But from an ownership perspective, knowing that it's going to be really low, obviously, I see no reason to play him in cash games. But in tournaments, it's kind of interesting just knowing that a player that good is going to be that low. And the volume was there. He still found a way to get his touches against a really good defense, probably one of the best in the league. Last year, they were top 5 in pass and run DVOA. So Steelers, that is. So, but I'm with you on the Bears side. I love what you said about Allen Robinson. He asked about a trade, right? And so if you want to get traded and you really want teams to trade you, and ultimately why? Because you wanted an extension. So that means you want somebody to trade for you, and then you want them to pay for you. And if that's a situation, you need to ball out. You need to show people that they want you on the team, even with a bad quarterback. So I agree with you. I think that the Bears will be looking, not for nothing too, but if you're not going to give the guy an extension, and then you might as well trade him and get something good for him. Make him look as good as you fucking can and see what you can get. Some draft picks or something. So I'm with you on that. I think that he's in a phenomenal spot, especially on a PPR side. We're looking for volume. I think he gets double-digit targets easy. He had 9 targets, only caught 4 because his quarterback is Mitch Trubisky. But still, I was very impressed. I think I'll be very impressed, I should say. I always say fucking the wrong word, but I think I'll be impressed. With what we see from him this week against the Giants. Really good matchup, really bad secondary. I'm loving it. So more of a tournament game, but something to keep an eye on. Some variables in that shit. Next up, Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers. We have a 49.5 total, which is up from 46.5. So evidently, the line maker saw how these two teams played and was like, we're raising that shit. Packers currently 5.5 point favorites at home. Rodgers, one of the top quarterbacks Last week, Adams obviously the best play on the board. Talk to me about Lions and Packers.
Yeah, I mean, if you got to be looking at the Lions injury report. They had 3 cornerbacks that were out last week, and if that happens again, oh boy. I mean, Rodgers, assault on the league might just be on again for another week. He looked great. That offense looked great. Aaron Jones kind of didn't have that big of a role, but it still seemed like he was the number one lead dog. So I probably would fade him though this week. I just don't see a reason to go there. But I don't mind the receivers. Kenny Golladay obviously is the wild card. If he's there, that makes it a little bit more difficult. If not, I mean, Marvin Jones was another disappointment last week. Seems to me like you could also have some interest in some of these other Packers receivers. Martez Valdez-Scantling got 6 targets and a touchdown, 496, as well as Alan Lazard. So if they think there's going to be 49 points scored, that means that they're going to have to be throwing all day and stuff like that. So I like the Packers side of this. I don't even mind it if you just did like a Packers stack and didn't even have to really bring it back with any Lions player. You didn't really have to. Maybe TJ Hawkinson. He seemed to be very involved. He's the one who seemed to be the benefactor of Golladay being out.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation. This is an interesting one. The Packers secondary was good last year. They were good against the pass. Oh no, wait. Did I fuck that up? They were good against they were good against the pass last year. It was the run that they were getting torched on, right? I think so last year. And with Stafford, granted, he was playing the Bears, but just didn't look as good as we saw last year, right? Like last year before he got hurt, it looked like he was running for the MVP. Then he got hurt, and I'm willing to let it go because missing Kenny Golladay, when you look at their roster, is kind of a big deal. I wish they would have utilized Hawkinson a little bit more. Hawkinson was really efficient, but he only had 5 targets. He caught all 5, but only had 5 targets and a touchdown. I was surprised. Quintez Cephas had 10 targets, only caught 3 of them, but he had 10 targets. So that's kind of interesting. He's 3,800 on a PPR site. It's just something to keep in your back pocket. But that's obviously dependent on Golladay. And I think that's how I feel about this game, including the Packers side. I think if Galladay's available, I think Detroit maybe can be a little bit more competitive here and push that total, force the Packers to keep playing aggressively, force them to feed Devontae Adams, Scantling, Lazard. But I think if Galladay's out, I'm worried they're going to struggle. And I think it's a talent issue. You have Marvin Jones, who I think he's got talent, obviously, but he being a number 2 is good for him. Like it just is. It always has. He's a down the field kind of guy. It's the same thing we would see if there was no Shepard, if there was no Tate and no Shepard. Maybe Slayton wouldn't be such a great thing, right? Because defenses only have one person to worry about, really. Now you have Ingram, but this is a bad example. But regardless, I think Golladay being back actually helps Marvin Jones if he comes back. So I think the Lions will be a little bit more efficient if he comes back. If he's out, I think I kind of like Aaron Jones a little bit more and the running game because I could see the Packers kind of getting ahead on them and just pounding it away and just letting Jones do his thing. And I think Jones will be very low on this week because number one, he didn't do as great as people wanted last week. I didn't do terrible, but he wasn't obviously a slate breaker. But them being at home, a touchdown favorite. If Golladay is out, I'll like Jones more. If Golladay is in, then I think this game can get a little bit more competitive, and I'll look a little more closely at the receivers, who are all priced up because of their outstanding performance last week, by the way, or at least Adams is 8-3, rightfully so. No complaints. With that said, Joe, Carolina Panthers, Tampa Bay Bucks. We have a 48.5 total. The Bucks opened up -7.5. They're up to -9.5. Tom Brady didn't look so hot in his debut, and Bruce Arians was not afraid to tell the world about it. Meanwhile, Carolina defensively looked like the Carolina we thought they were going to look like. What do you got here, Joe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, this is going to be, I think, both running backs of the Buccaneers will be a talking point. Is Ronald Jones or Fournette playable this week in GPPs? They have a great matchup. Probably the worst defensive line in the league is the Carolina Panthers. So, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to throw out there Fournette's role going to increase, or is Jones going to take a hold of it? Fournette is still priced more than Ronald Jones on FanDuel, believe it or not. So, and then C-Mac, his price went up, and he just had a whole home game. I'm not going to pay that much. He 26 and he only had 4 targets. And if he doesn't get in the end zone, that doesn't happen. I don't think that's going to happen this time. I think they're trying to throw the ball downfield more. So I just don't think C-Mac is worth 10.5. I think you can totally fade him. I did last week, and it was fine. Probably the guy I'm looking at most in this game is Chris Godwin. He's the one that is going to just pop out at everybody. Just, the bad secondary of the Carolina Panthers is just going to allow him to run wild, especially if Evans is out. Brady's going to want to get back on track and pepper him with targets. Then at tight end, O.J. Howard seems to be the guy that has more of a role right now than Rob Gronkowski. So take that as you will. But this game, I don't know. I kind of like Godwin, and that's about it right now.
Yeah, wanting more clarity, and we're not going to get it from Bruce Arians, right? Like, the guy notorious for not even telling you the truth anyway. So that sucks. But I would like to think that the transition, if they do go from Ronald Jones as their primary back to Leonard Fournette, I'd like to think the transition will be a little slow. With that said, Ronald Jones is only 5,200, so he could be a pivotal piece if we're counting on him, especially if people who are kind of banking on Snell don't have Snell anymore. He didn't get a lot of pass game work, only got 3 targets, but he did get 17 carries, and this is a much softer matchup against Carolina, as you mentioned before, something where you envision them playing from ahead. On the other hand, after Brady just got called out by his coach, it didn't look so great without Belichick. This could be a statement game for Brady to kind of come out here and just show, like, no, I'm still Tom Brady, and I'm with you on Godwin. I think Brady, depending on where his ownership lies, is kind of interesting because he's also wedged. He's below Dak. He's above Rivers. He's in that range. And I think people are maybe a little skeptical after what they saw. But one thing we know about Carolina is defensively, they're probably one of the worst, if not the worst, teams in the league, at least from what I expect. So I'm very high on the Tampa Bay offense. We just need to zoom in and kind of figure out where we want to go. There's some interesting situations. I'm with Godwin though, regardless though. Godwin, I think it's clear, right? Like, he's Brady. I don't think it sucks for Evans. And like, at some point, maybe Evans will drop too low, and maybe it happens this week where people just don't think it's happening and Brady just comes up. But I think Brady's going to be motivated. One of the reasons he left Belichick was because he felt like Belichick was treating him like shit, even though he was Tom Brady. Like, he wants to be like his own rules kind of guy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he wants to have his own rules, and Brady gets to do things his way. Brady gets to have his, little personal manager trainer dude like with him at all times. Only Brady can do that because it's TB12 time. You know what I'm saying? So I was a little surprised that Arians handled it the way he did. But I think maybe it'll work because you know what? It worked for Belichick all those fucking years. If he was talking shit to Tom Brady at practice and telling him he's a piece of shit and all this stuff, well, evidently it fucking works. So I do want to be higher on this offense for sure. I just want to figure out, is it more through the running game? Is it more through the passing game, or both? Maybe it's both. Maybe it's Onslaught City because their defense don't look so bad either, right? They did a pretty good job with Michael Thomas. Even Kamara, who got the touchdowns. Not like Kamara was slicing him up every single play. He just had a few big plays. You know what I mean? So this defense looked pretty good. And I think that this is another onslaught type situation we can consider. But at the very least, the running game and the defense correlation does pop out and seem pretty strong. Just for the simple facts, they're at home, they're big favorites, and they're in a really good matchup. This fucking slate. Everyone shit down is gonna be tough because everything looks good. Everything looks fucking good. Mm-hmm. Except this game. We got the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins, 41 total. The Bills are currently 6-point favorites on the road. That's risen from 4.5. Josh Allen did look really good. He scored I think two or three touchdowns in the first half, and then he really eased up in the second. With that said, the Dolphins look like complete garbage against the Patriots. Do you like anything here, Joe?
Well, here's the thing. Josh Allen. Now, on FanDuel, Josh Allen has had 4 starts against the Dolphins. In those 4 starts, he has finished QB1, QB1, QB2, and QB7. So he eats the Dolphins alive. Problem is that he's $8,200. Right around Dak Prescott 83, Kyler Murray at 8,000. I mean, so I just feel like I think he makes a great GPP option because everybody's going to be going to Dak. I mean, literally, right now, Dak Prescott will be the highest owned quarterback on the slate. I'm sure of it. So right below him, he's going to come so unowned just because of that. But that's a great thing to just play him naked. But I saw that I think an underrated duo is John Brown and Diggs. They're both speedsters. They're going to stretch the defense. So I'm not saying pair him with it. You could with either of them. I think that he likes Brown a little bit more right now. But that's about it in this game. But Josh Allen definitely. He's done well against these Dolphins. So I don't see why he wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only pause for concern with the Bills' offense in general is ceiling, right? Like Josh Allen hit the ceiling, but the other 2 players didn't. They had good games, right? They both had good games, but they didn't hit the ceiling. It's hard to envision one of them putting up 30. It was hard to envision that last year when John Brown was cheap every week. Now you got Stephon Diggs there competing with the targets with a quarterback who's not afraid to run the ball in himself, and a team that will completely trust their defense once they're up. And that's exactly what happened with the Jets, right? So, I mean, I'm sure the Jets made some adjustments, but it's not like the Jets changed their personnel. They still got a shitty-ass defense. Oh, I mean, I say that, and when we get to that game, I have some interesting things to consider. But they took I think they kind of let their foot off the gas, right? They rely on the running game more. The running backs are a little confusing right now with Moss and Singletary. I think that's still a battle ongoing, so you're going to have to kind of guess if you want to hit there. But on the other hand, Fitzmagic, right? We've seen him do it before. He's got a terrible track record against the Patriots, so I don't think it should be that surprising. But maybe he could do a little bit more. And I think like Sam Darnold against the Bills, he did have plenty of opportunities. He had a lot of missed throws. He just had a lot of really bad fucking throws. He said he was nervous, whatever. There were opportunities there that he just missed. So maybe the Dolphins surprise us. Cause there were a lot of people who didn't think the Dolphins would be that bad. I mean, none of us were interested. We were more on the Cam, obviously Patriots side of that game, but I wasn't necessarily expecting them to look that terrible. That was pretty fucking bad. So maybe, but for right now, I'm with you. There's too much other shit I like. It's hard for me. Ceiling is what I'm looking for. I don't really see ceiling in this game. That's my issue. With that said, let's keep it moving. We've got the San Francisco 49ers visiting my New York Jets. 42.5 total, down from 43.5. Niners opened up -6 after week 1. The Niners are now -7.5 because the Jets just looked that fucking bad. Joey, talk to me about my Jets and the 49ers.
We can just move on to the next. I mean, the Niners D is going to be popular. They're the highest on the slate. If Mostert, obviously he's a decent GPP play, but Coleman's going to be back now. I think Crowder is going to be obviously viable in any game just because that's who, Mr. Darnold likes the most. But George Kittle, sprained knee, here we go. Looks like he's hurt. So let's just stay off of that. And I don't think you really need anything in this game besides the defense. Stay away from the Jets' run game. I don't know. I guess if you wanted to throw Herndon out there, you could, but nothing really.
So interestingly enough, and like I promise you, this is not me homering out. This is more about pricing.
Okay.
But if Kittle is out, if Deebo Samuel, was on the IR. Okay, Deebo's on IR, right? Okay, so they have nothing, right? They have no Kittle. Kendrick Bourne really only makes a difference in the red zone. I agree with you. Even looking at the running back situation, the Jets have never really been a team that you enjoy running on. Their secondaries were their weak. I was not impressed with what I saw from Garoppolo in that game. And remember, that was the same team that he destroyed last year twice, put up like career high numbers against them twice. And without his weapons, no Debo. And last year, remember, he had Emmanuel Sanders, he had Debo, he had obviously a healthy Kittle. He was able to do some magic. Without those guys, he has none of those guys. And he lost Kittle. He looked like dog shit. They're all the way across the country playing the Jets. Greg Williams is a playmaking type defensive coach, right? The Jets, as bad as the Jets were against the Bills, their defense put up 7 fantasy points, which is like not good. We're not bragging there, but they're 2K on DraftKings. They're literally free on DraftKings. So I'm not totally opposed to taking a stab at the Jets. There's a lot of really expensive plays that I like that we talked about at running back and receiver. If I'm not comfortable, if I can't find enough value to where I can afford one of the more expensive defenses, I'm not ruling out considering the Jets in tournaments at 2K because I really don't think the Niners offensively are great without weapons. I think Garoppolo is the kind of guy where he needs weapons. He needs guys to throw to. And I just don't see it on their roster. Now, maybe we see it this week because the Jets secondary is that bad, and it is that bad. But it's really bad versus bad when you look at the receiver matchups and the cornerback matchups in this game. Another thing, there's one other player that I'm interested in. It's not Herndon, sure, Crowder, sure, but it's actually Brashad Perriman, who's 3,800 on DraftKings. He only had 5 targets against the Bills. That's one of the toughest matchups he's going to have all year, going up against that fucking guy in Buffalo. This time, he's going up against Richard Sherman when they want him to, right? Like, Sherman doesn't leave the left side. It's very simple. Get him on the other side, and you can do what you want to do. We saw DeAndre Hopkins completely torch these guys. I'm not comparing Perriman to DeAndre Hopkins, but Perriman is 3,800, and he is a big upside type player. He is somebody that can, I mean, he in one play he can pay that off, and he's supposed to be the number 1 receiver, right? They brought him in here on the outside. He's supposed to be taking Robbie Anderson's spot, so we know he's got the speed to do it. I think it's easy for them if they really want to do it. They just got to put him on the other side of Sherman, and I think they can make some things happen. And again, the Jets really played terribly. Like Darnold looked like shit. Maybe he looks like shit again. Maybe this time he's at home, he gets his shit together a little bit. But he had opportunities to hit guys. He just missed them. So I'm not talking about no Jets stack or nothing like that. But I do think that Brashad Perriman for value is interesting. And I think the Jets defense at 2K is also interesting if Kittle is out. And I'm assuming he has sprained knee, right? Like, even if he plays at this point, you got a fucking sprained knee? I don't know. But against the Jets, maybe. But it's just bad on bad when you look at the receivers and secondaries. And I don't think Garoppolo, I'm not like a Garoppolo truther. To me, Garoppolo is still more of a game manager. He's a really, really good game manager. But if you can't run the ball, which maybe they can, maybe they can't, we'll find out. If they're not able to run the ball on the Jets, I think the game is going to be low scoring. And I think, well, that's not a hot take exactly. We have a 42 total. But I can see the Niners struggling to make some things happen.
No. I mean, people won hundreds of thousands of dollars last weekend because they played the Skins Washington. Even at 2K, it was the same thing, and they're mispriced.
Completely. Just for what they're getting,
what the Niners are bringing into them.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel. So it's not like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're my lock defense. I'm going to rush to jam them in. No. But if you really like your team and you have to sacrifice defense a little bit, I think they're my sacrifice at this point on a fucking Tuesday. But I'll use that as a cop-out all day. With that said, Joe, let's go on to the next. We've got the LA Rams visiting the Philadelphia Eagles, another team across the country. 47 total, up from 46. The Eagles opened up as 3-point favorites. They are now 1.5-point underdogs coming into week 2. Talk to me about the Rams, who are coming off a pretty big win against the Cowboys.
Yeah, this game is screaming that, the Rams defense has got to be in play. Aaron Donald against that offensive line, protecting Wentz. I could see him having a couple sacks, just like the Washington D did. I think, the Rams D is just as good or better. Here's what I'm going to say is, since the Rams Week 9 bye last year, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods combined. Kupp has played in 9 games. He's had 52 targets for 409 yards and 40 receptions and 5 touchdowns. Robert Woods in only 8 games has 87 targets, 58 receptions, 768 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But yet, for some reason, on FanDuel, Cooper Kupp is 7,200, and the pretty much cash game porn, Robert Woods, is 6,700. So, to me, it's almost like 6,700 lock button on like a cash game play, especially if he gets in the end zone. I love Robert Woods on Sunday. He's probably my favorite play on the Rams side because you really don't know how that running backs are going to shake out. The same thing with Philly. I think even if Sanders comes back, Scott's going to have some sort of role where it might not be a full load for Sanders. But the tight ends, obviously, I think the tight ends on both sides, all 3 of them are in play. Ertz, Higbee, and Goddard. We saw what Logan Thomas did against the Eagles last week. I think he had like 7 or 8 targets, got a touchdown, 40, 50 yards. I'd like to see Higbee or even Everett if he plays. And if he doesn't play, then Higbee is going to become another great play. But Goddard seems to be the guy also that everybody's going to. He outplayed Ertz. Everybody seems to go to Ertz, but Goddard's the one with is lower priced. And if they're going to run that 12, the 2 tight end set with as long as these receivers are hurt still, and Deshaun Jackson and Rager are just so boom or bust, I feel like Goddard is like one of the safest tight ends right now on the board.
I mean, week after week, people play Ertz, and Goddard just does the dirty. He just week after week on DraftKings. Actually, finally caught up to that. Zach Ertz is 5'6" on DraftKings. Goddard is 5K. So the gap is finally closing. I mean, even last week it was a very large separation. Ertz did have 7 targets. Only caught 3 of them. He did get a touchdown. But obviously what we're seeing is a little concerning. I do think this is a good situation for the tight ends, especially being like you had mentioned about Aaron Donald. You would imagine that Wentz is going to be under a lot of pressure, as per usual at this point. So I think there's stuff to look at there. Deshaun Jackson also, I think the targets were there with him being the only, like, the number 1 receiver at the moment, assuming that Jeffrey is out. 7 targets, only caught 2 of them. Again, this time they're at home. I know the crowd isn't really a big deal at the moment, but maybe it bodes better for them. And Deshaun Jackson, who got a lot of love last week and really disappointed, maybe the ownership drops a little bit. It's hard to make a strong case for him over everyone else. Like, if it's just a 1-game slate, it's very easy to make a case for Ertz, Goddard, and Deshaun Jackson. But being that it's such a big slate, we've had so many great offensive opportunities to discuss. It's just not as exciting to talk about the Eagles, even though I think the price on Ertz is really low and interesting, and I think I will have more interest in him and some of these other players as the week goes on. But like you said, looking at the Rams side, a little different, right? Pass funnel defense that they're playing. So while Brown did really well, and I think he's interesting long term, I do think that the passing game is where we want to look, starting with Robert Woods, like you said. Same thing on DraftKings. Woods is cheaper than Kupp. They're both pretty reasonable, I think, for the upside that they present in a pass funnel situation. I'm not too crazy either about the Rams in general in this spot across the country. It's not like the Redskins put up monstrous points on the Eagles. It's just the Eagles' offense was just inept, and I think a lot of that had to do, like you said, with the offensive line issues. So the Rams' defense, I agree with you. At 2,800 on DraftKings, they seem to be like the main pop out. Like I said, I'm sure I'll get a little more into some of these Eagle players, and I'll come around a little more on the Rams players. But right now, the Rams' defense is looking pretty juicy, I think, as well. We'll move it right along to the Washington football team and the Arizona Cardinals. 46.5 total, up from 45.5. The Cardinals are 7-point favorites at home. What do you got here, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals were probably one of the surprise teams last week, upsetting the Niners. Now they face Washington. You have DeAndre Hopkins was his only 8,300, and the Skins secondary, Washington secondary, is terrible. So I don't, Wentz, they had 2 interceptions. Wentz made just terrible throws. So I feel like DeAndre Hopkins at 8,300 is almost a little bit of a discount, even though he's the second highest receiver on the slate. I love him. I think he's pretty safe. We saw what he did in the first game. I didn't think he was going to be that productive, but people were thinking he was just going to take such a fall. I just didn't see that. So I don't think this Washington defense is as good as Philly made them look, but their defensive line is no joke with Chase Young and stuff like that. They have a very good defensive line right now. But Kyler Murray's going to be able to move around that pocket and scramble. So I like the Cardinals to win. I mean, I feel like Kyler Murray you could play naked or just pair him with Hopkins. That's about it. On the Washington side, maybe you could throw Logan Thomas out there because they're playing Arizona D, but they did all right on Kittle last week, so I'd stay away from that. Maybe Dan Arnold, he's pretty cheap too. And we saw that Washington got Goddard and Ertz both had a great game, so there's another dart throw too. But this game is still not too much you like from it.
Yeah, I agree. I think on the air you can definitely make a case for the Arizona pass game. Of course, when can you not? This team plays with 4 receivers because they want to fucking throw the ball. DeAndre Hopkins, wow. That was like the Texans, and we'll talk about David Johnson later. They wanted DJ. They had a purpose for him. And likewise here, like you were a pass-heavy offense, you have an opportunity to get one of the best receivers in the game. Your game plan is going to change from whatever it is to giving that guy the ball, and that's exactly what they did. So I love the matchup for DeAndre Hopkins. He's definitely someone if I can afford him, I want to try to get when I can. 16 targets, caught 14 of them, 151 yards, and now they're playing another pass funnel type defense in Washington, who has got a very good defensive front, a terrible secondary. Everything looks great. The one thing I'll add, and even with Kyler Murray, like even if he's under, you would imagine like the Skins, we're talking about how good they are, and maybe it is because the Eagles' offensive line is terrible. We'll find out this week. But if Kyler Murray's under pressure, we're going to see him run, and that's just going to add to his upside, add to his floor. I think Kyler Murray makes a lot of sense. And in triple stacks, I don't hate the idea of including Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk had 5 targets, only caught 1. But his price has dropped down to $4,300 at this point. Again, we're in that territory where if he's a value play, you really only need that one big play. And he's more than capable of that. That's really what he's here for, is that big shot down the field. I think we'll see more of that. Like Fitzgerald, obviously, is more of a slot guy. We're going to see short passes, low A-dot. But Kirk is going to be another player that when teams trying to hone in on Hopkins, they're going to switch over and start throwing it to Kirk down the field. So I think he's someone to keep an eye on. But Hopkins and Murray definitely look pretty juicy in this pass funnel matchup. I don't hate the idea of Washington. You feel like there's something on Washington you want. Maybe it's McLaurin. Maybe he burned everybody as chalk last week, and now this is the week to jump back. You feel like you want something, and the reason for that is because of how fast Arizona plays. It just like the faster a team plays, the more opportunities for the opposing team. They're running quicker. There's going to be more of this, especially a lot of throwing, a lot of clock stoppage. So I feel like there's something on the Redskins side. Excuse me. I'm fucked up there. Washington football team. My bad. Washington football team side. Gotta be careful with that cancel culture shit, Joe. Gotta be real careful these days. Gotta be real fucking careful. On the YouTube, on the Twitch, on it all, man. But fuck, now I forgot my train of thought because I fucked up there. Anyway, I think there's more. I think there's something on Washington. Maybe it is McLaurin. Maybe his ownership's lower, but there's gotta be something on Washington I'm interested in. Just for the simple fact that I always want to take players against Arizona, even if Arizona's defense ends up being the best. Like it'll take me till week 4 or 5 until I finally realize that, because when teams play fast, I want to play the other side against them also, because there's typically just a lot of plays in the game. Boom, got that shit off my chest. It was very, very difficult to say all that. Kansas City Chiefs and Patio Joe's San Diego Chargers. No. LA Chargers, Joe. LA Chargers, Joe. We've got a 47.5 total, down from 50. The Chargers opened up a 7.5 point home underdogs. Now it's up to 8.5. I guess their out showing against Cincinnati didn't impress the books. Patio Joe, talk to me about the best offense in the league and your boys.
I mean, I think that if you were looking on how this game is going to go, I don't feel like what's the over
47.5. It was 50 at open. So this was like
I see. I understand how it's going down. Like the Chargers D is good enough, if they can get pressure on Mahomes to slow that offense down. Now, whether or not they slow it down enough, and whether or not they can keep up from their side of the if they can keep putting up points. And that's what's kind of scares me, is that I just didn't see like enough offensive firepower from the Chargers on Sunday that leads me to believe that they can, keep up with the likes of Mahomes and Hill and Kelsey. I mean, I think if you wanted to go with an onslaught of the Chiefs, you could. It's no mine, but the Chargers have done decent against Kelsey. Tyreek Hill has burnt the Chargers in the past, but they've also have kept him in check. So it's kind of hard, and I feel like Edwards-Helaire is fine too. More of a he's 8,000, so it's the first time people are they really gonna play him in this setting against all those other good running backs around that same price? On the Chargers side, I think like we were talking about Eckler, I think the public will be kind of scared away from him. So in a negative game script, which means a positive game script, whether it might be coming back and you get a lot of garbage time, hopefully Eckler will, at 6,900 on FanDuel, it's not bad, especially if you're going to tell him he's going to get 20 carries. You put him around the guys that he's around, I don't mind that. But he's not a running back one right now. And, I mean, Mike Williams showed that he was really, like, that Taylor wanted to go downfield, so I don't mind that. If you wanted to take a shot on Mike Williams. And Hunter Henry had like 7 targets, 5 for 73, so he wasn't too bad either. So it's just, I just don't know if the Chargers are going to be able to keep up to where it's a good game to stack. But I don't mind the Chiefs side either.
Yeah, this is a very attractive looking game. If the Chargers, like you said, can hang around enough, if they can stay within 2 scores, that's really all we need. If they can stay within 2 scores, and then that's enough to where the Chiefs, go full throttle on the gas. And also, if you look at the prices of the I almost said Clippers, the Charger players, Hunter Henry is 5,100 and just doesn't stand out a ton amongst, I think, your Zach Ertz's and Goddard's and Kelsey's and all these other guys. But Tyrod Taylor is known for throwing to his tight end. Like in Buffalo, he made that fucking guy, Clay. He made Charles Clay. You know what I'm saying? He made that dude a thing. And now he's got a really good tight end in Hunter Henry. So, 8 targets, 5 receptions, 73 yards in a game where they didn't play well. I'm not a big believer in the Chiefs' defense. I don't think anyone is. I think they're just, can you keep up with their offense? That's a whole other issue. But I also think that the Chargers' defense plays a little better maybe at home. I mean, not that they played bad. Their offense didn't help them out by putting them in bad situations. But I do have a little bit of faith that the Chargers kick it up. I think they will throw to Eckler more in this matchup, especially being that I assume they'll be trailing more. I don't think they'll have a choice. I think Keenan Allen, his price has dropped really, really low, and I'm concerned about him from a season-long outlook with this new quarterback. But in this situation, I mean, coming into this game, you're not playing the ordinary team. Like, you're playing the Super Bowl champions, and you know that you got to bring that offensive fight. Forget about your defense. I don't care how good your defense is. Your defense ain't doing shit against this offense. You got to come ready to fucking, swing away and put up some points offensively. So I think Tyrod Taylor, as cheap as he is, I wouldn't be surprised to see him run the ball a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him, like you said. One thing that we did like, he was trying to throw the ball down the field. He wasn't terribly efficient, but he was trying to throw the ball down the field. Now, the Chargers' offensive line issues, Joe, talk to me about that, because I think that really, really hampered what they were trying to do. Tyrod Taylor was under pressure a lot. There were a lot of plays where if you look at his game logs, it says that he rushed like 6 or 7 times for 7 yards, when in reality, he was more so about to get sacked, and he got back to the line of scrimmage. So talk to me about your offensive line there, bro. Are you concerned?
I mean, it just depends on if Pouncey's out again. They beefed up the line, so hopefully, that it will, they'll be fine this week. But if Pouncey's out, that's going to hurt. And Bulaga, I don't know if they play much. They're like cursed on the line. So if they're in, they're fine. But if not, then they're back to the way it was.
How that's your boy. One other thing, Mike Williams, 4,200. He fooled us all, Joe. He fooled us all. We all didn't think he was going to play. Ended up playing. Only caught 4 balls, but he did get 9 targets. So, again, they did throw the ball down the field. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, they had targets. The only one who didn't get as many targets as we thought was Eckler. But in this game, you got to think that they threw the ball 30 times against the Bengals. You got to think like we could see Tyrod Taylor throw the ball 40 times, 40 plus in this particular game, if they are even trying to keep it close. Because obviously, there's a very likelihood that the Chiefs just roll them, and it was just not close enough for them to keep trying. I mean, we could end up seeing a rookie quarterback in this game, right? If shit gets too ugly, we could end up seeing Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
Could see him,
Huh.
maybe. With that said, you guys already know about the Chiefs. I mean, we don't got to tell anybody to play the fucking Chiefs. I mean, do what you do. Sammy Watkins, 4,600. I don't know why. Kelsey, 7K. Probably going to be low owned. The running back looked really fucking good and got like 25 carries. On and on. You know the drill. Mahomes, dirties all day. The next team, similar thing. Baltimore Ravens is the last game. Houston Texans, we have a 52 total, down from 53. The Ravens opened up a 6.5 point road favorites. They're up to 7 on the road. Talk to me about the Ravens. And yeah, that's right. 7, Joe. Tell me about the Ravens and Texans.
I think it boils down to this. If you think that the Texans can keep up, then you got to love Lamar Jackson. Same thing like Mahomes. He's just going to keep playing. They're going to keep running. They're going to keep scoring. They're going to keep that offense on the field. They're going to keep going. If you don't think that they can keep it close, then I feel like you just get bits and pieces of the Ravens offense. I mean, obviously, Mark Andrews you got 2 touchdowns again. Jackson just loves him. So play him again. And we saw they didn't stop Kelsey last week, and now they got Andrews this week. So, man, Houston, what a tough 2 games. They start off with Kansas City and then Baltimore. Wow. And then, obviously, Marquise Brown, he's the one that I feel like is just going to get loose for a couple. I feel like he has the same upside as Tyreek Hill at 8K, but he is 6,200 on FanDuel. So I'd rather take Marquise Brown over, they're the same type of player, in my opinion. And then on the other side, Will Fuller, we showed that he's a wide receiver 1, at least on that team. He's 6,100. We have to see if they're going to be shadowing him or not. I don't mind playing him, especially if you're going to stack this game. He's the guy to play. He's a guy that's going to be, involved. He's a guy that we know that has the highest ceiling. I also don't mind playing, Deshaun Watson. Both quarterbacks because if you think that they're going to be behind, Deshaun's just going to get garbage time like he did in Kansas City. And DJ still being 7,200 and the only show in town. It's a tough matchup, but I don't mind it if you're playing in GPPs. I think you're going to get all the carries, so I don't mind DJ.
Yeah, I agree. I think from a pricing standpoint, David Johnson is definitely in play. He's cheap on FanDuel. He's cheap on DraftKings too. He's only 5,800. And like you said, in a game where they were trailing the whole time, he had 11 carries for 77 yards, a touchdown, at 4 targets. And again, that was a game where Houston just they were playing catch up. And this could be the same situation where their defense is just not good. But yeah, I think he's in play. I think Will Fuller, like you said, showed that he could be a wide receiver 1, if he could stay healthy. If he goes down, they're in trouble. But while he's in, he looked good. He looked good. This is going to be a tough, I think a little bit of a tougher matchup for him, but he's got speed. He's got hands. So I think could be okay. The Lamar Jackson, you could play him by himself. He's the only quarterback I feel comfortable playing, naked, if you will. I'm fine with that. I think we have a lot of good plays in general, a lot of ways to spend your money, but you know what you're getting with him. You got a pretty comfortable floor, ceiling, everything else, and you know where he's going with the ball for the most part. Now, Andrews and Marquise Brown didn't get a ton of targets, but the targets they did get were efficient, and they just didn't have to. Right, the Browns, they were just beating the shit out of them. They just didn't have to. So if Houston is able, and this is definitely a comeback, a bring back situation to me. I think it's definitely a situation where if you are playing Ravens players, you're going to want to bring it back with some Texans guys. And I think that Will Fuller kind of headlines that. David Johnson is certainly a variable. And then after that, it's kind of ugly, right? Randall Cobb did not get much action. Kenny Stills, you're not really sure what his role is on this team right now or where he fits. So a lot of question marks, but Will Fuller does seem like a standout. Just a little worried because the difference I think between this one and the Chiefs is that Baltimore's defense I think is pretty good. So I don't think Houston's is. So this could be a little bit of. Then again, they're home this time, so maybe that helps. But definitely a weird one to figure out. And yeah, man, fucking Houston. Damn, that sucks. Week 1 in a weird season with no preseason, no nothing. In your first year without DeAndre Hopkins. you see you see Houston and then you see Baltimore. Damn. Do not envy them. That is going to do it for the game by game breakdown on our first look. Joe, this was real cool. Nation, if you haven't hit the like button already, do us a favor. Please hit that like button. If you're listening to us on Podbean or iTunes, please subscribe. Leave us a friendly little review. Leave us some shit in the comments. What's up?
CK. Guess who the Texans play week 3?
Oh my gosh, bro! Oh shit!
Jesus Christ!
Wow. What was their? I gotta see what their win total was on the season, man. Because
they won. I mean, they were in first place last year of the South.
Oh man, that's fucked up. Like that's really fucked up. Like you got 2 of the best offenses in the game, followed by another good offense, but more importantly, a really good defense. It's damn.
I mean, it loosens up a little bit after that with the Vikings, Jaguars, and Titans and Packers, but wow. That first 2 games, Jesus. In Pittsburgh, too. Forget it. They're 0-3.
That's wild. Yeah. That is wild. Shout out to the Texans, man. We feel your pain, man. Feel your pain. It's rough. But yeah, that's going to do it for us. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Come back for Friday night, Patio Joe, Paulie D, NFL Wise stream. Position by position. Thought you guys did an awesome job with the format of the show that it flowed really well. Looking forward to that after everybody's done their research, everybody's ready to rock. And of course, don't forget, if you need more information, that cherry on top, come check us out at wisestake.com. We are a premium DFS content provider as well as a DFS community designed to help make you a better DFS player. Patio Joe writing the cash game articles, crushed it last week. Paulie D with the GPP breakdown. I write a little core plays article myself. And we have projections. For those of you who like the MME stuff, we've got cheat sheets that are updated as we get information, as the projections are adjusted. So come check it out. Come see what we got. We got week passes. It's affordable. It's a great place to hang out. You get in this monthly. We have a Slack chat for our monthly members or higher. So make sure you check that shit out. But more importantly, like the video, like the podcast, whatever you're listening or watching us on. Show us some love there because we really appreciate it. It really helps us out. Joe, anything in closing before we get out of here?
No, man. I mean, it's week 2, so we're going to be thinking these teams are going to be this way, but there are going to be some surprises this week. Some teams are going to jump up and surprise us, and they're going to be more competitive than they were week 1. There's going to be a big change.
Absolutely, man. And perception is everything, right? So what we saw in week 1, I think one of the keys is to do your research and make sure what you saw was legitimate. Like, there are some defenses that looked really good because they were playing inept offenses. There were some, same way or other way around. Some offenses look better than they may actually be because they played. Like, Jacobs is a really good example of that on the Raiders. I know a lot of people season long wise, the outlook is not good for him. Everybody was in agreement he was going to smash week 1, but his season long outlook wasn't good because his schedule gets a whole lot harder, and he's not a guy that gets involved in the pass game a ton. So these are the kind of things you got to be thinking, man. Perception is how Vegas sets their lines. They make the adjustments based off public perception. So don't believe everything you saw. Go back, do your research, watch some film, try to really get in it. More importantly, come join the Wise Take Nation, and we will show you the way to the promised land. Book your ticket to Screenshot City, NFL style. For Patio Joe, for myself, the entire Wise Take Nation, as always, good luck.
Peace.